All right, here's part four, and we're getting some real doozies here. I'm partially having fun, but that's because I'm descended from thousands of years of pirates and I'm a naturally argumentative person. Yet another qualifying factor for me to be part of the ministry. Um, let's see, where were we? Why is the story of Jesus' birth and life so similar to mythological beings who lived before his time? And if you want to hear about their stories, we'll have a link below. It isn't. Honestly, what's going on here, for those of you who don't already know, is in the past 200 years, a lot of religions that existed later have been predated by scholarship. For example, this guy named Zoroaster is a big favorite one that gets pulled up, and Mithraism is another one. And what actually happened is these things crop up as imitations of Judeo-Christianity. And in order to in order to discredit Judeo-Christianity, scholars have, with increasingly little and more slim evidence, um, claimed that they predate them. Like Zoroaster, my favorite is Zoroastrianism. So those of you who read the Bible know about the Exodus, where the people of Israel and Judah sinned, and God smeared them all over the face of the planet. And shortly thereafter, you get things like Buddhism, early Buddhism with its much more Judeo-Christian idea influences, and you get this one God, one devil kind of flame of faith and light that the Magi would have been part of the official organization of, called Zoroastrianism in Mesopotamia. And Zoroaster was born 20 to 40 years, depending on if I don't have the dates off the top of my head, but about 20 to 40 years after the exile to Babylon. So a bunch of Jews with their ideas of God show up in Babylon, and suddenly there's a new religion. And the humanities teacher at the University of Akron, who taught world history, world culture and civilization, or Western cult, taught that Zoroastrianism got its start in 1600, which is really amazing since the founder wasn't born for another 1,000 years. But it was so important to this atheist that Zoroastrianism be the source of God and Satan that it had to predate. She moved the date by 1,000 years and wasn't able to tell me why. You know, why was this? She also liked the Gospel of Thomas, but she hadn't read it. So I talked to her. It's like, she's like, oh, the Gospel of Thomas is a much more advanced thought, and it's much earlier. And I was like, really? What do you think about the end of the Gospel of Thomas when Peter turns to Jesus and says, Jesus, wouldn't it be great if you turned Mary into a man so that she could go to heaven too? And Jesus says, okay, poof, and does. Oh, I don't remember that passage. Ignorant atheists. Really, you're going to be able to find scholars who will say that these religions and these mythical features like Mithras, and Ahriman and Ahura Mazda are predate and other sources, but they by and large don't bear up. And what tends to happen is the opposite. Judeo-Christianity shows up, and within 100 years there's an imitating religion that claims to predate it, but there's no archaeological evidence, there's no external evidence, there's only internal claims. And the very thing that you're so fond of being skeptical for, Christianity, suddenly becomes quite credible because it says what you want, and there goes your intellectual integrity right out the window. Let's see. How do you decide which sections of the Bible are literally true and which ones are just metaphors? The same way they do with any other language. Context and vocabularization. Prophetic visions tend to be metaphors. Jesus saying, and the gospel saying, behold, he told them a parable. Well, you're going to encounter a metaphor immediately thereafter. Absent these kind of things, it's literally true. It's kind of simple. What are the minimum requirements for being a Christian? This is an excellent question. It was asked shortly after the rise of Christianity, when all these false versions were cropping up. See previous rant. And the answer is the Apostles' Creed. The quick answer is he who believes and is baptized will be saved. The question then becomes, believes what? The answer to that is the Apostles' Creed. The Apostles' Creed is the summary of the Apostles' teaching. It was put together in the 2nd century, or probably a little earlier, but we have evidence of it in the 2nd century. And that is the definition of Christianity. If you are outside of the Apostles' Creed, you are by definition not a Christian. Useful, huh? Who falls under that definition? Well, take what they believe, throw it up against a creed. If it passes through, if it stands solid on the creed, awesome. If it passes through the creed like cheese through a grater, then you've probably just parsed a heresy. And here comes what we talked about in the very introduction. Those evil names that you're just supposed to hate, and it's going to be shocking that I might say these people do or don't. And frankly, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about it, so I don't have specific answers. Fred Phelps, I'm going to have to look up what the hell he did, whether he got divorced or had adultery or molested somebody or something that's supposed to be so shocking. This guy wants to destroy my faith by associating it with this guy, because Jesus doesn't save real sinners. Fred Phelps, I don't know. Pat Robertson, don't know. James Dobson, yes. Barack Obama, I'm betting no, but only God knows. Do you believe that Mary was impregnated without ever having sex? I do. If someone came up to you and said she was pregnant but she was totally a virgin, would you believe her? It's possible, you get certain sticky stuff close enough. You don't actually have to do the deed, but let's not talk about that in front of children. Why did God have to rape a teenage girl in order to become human? Oh, sorry, that did that by accident. And oh look, you call yourself a polite atheist, and there went your polite right out the window. I think this is probably the most honest question in this list. It's crude, it's disrespectful, it's deliberately provocative, and you think you're making a cool, clever point. Mary was old enough to be married, culturally. Actually, teenagers get married all the time. They're called 18 or 17 or 16, depending on your state. Oh my gosh. And in a world where people didn't have a great expectation to live by 50, guess what happened to that age? It went down some. Oh, I'm sorry. Does Christianity have to conform to your 20th century understanding, because you're going to be obnoxious about it? Or are you just flaunting your ignorance? Also, rape? What? Okay. So God shows up and says you're going to have a child, and you construe that as rape. There's no sex. There's no sexual violation. There's just pregnancy. How can that be? You can't possibly reproduce without having sex. Really, you know everything God can do. You're very smart. Reread the book of Job. Why did the virgin birth have to happen? Because we inherit our sin from our sinful nature from our fathers. Adam sinned. It got passed down from there in the image of Adam, meaning sinful, broken, incomplete. In order to completely fulfill the law, God had to come down in a way that did not inherit original sin. Hence the virgin birth. Then, not having original sin, which would have disqualified him from messiahhood, he couldn't have lived perfect because he would have been born in sin and then committed sin. There's difference. You're born without sin and committed no sin, thereby completely fulfilling the law on our behalf. And the follow the leader path of salvation goes from his perfect obedience to his obedience under the cross, to his victory over death in the empty tomb, to following him up to heaven to live with him forever. It's not really hard. But man, that question, if I were 20 years younger, and we were in a room, I think I might have smacked you upside the face for being that rude. And you call yourself the polite atheist. And the sad thing is, for atheists, you're polite. If you could go back in time to when Jesus was crucified, would you try to save him? Or would you stand back and do nothing, since your entire faith depends on him being crucified? I would be on my knees weeping and praying and thanking God, which is neither doing nothing nor trying to save him. It is his birth, his life, everything, the first prophecy ever given to Adam and Eve pointed to the cross. That is the victory, not just for me and my faith, but for all people. What would it take to change your mind about God's existence? About 500 scientific facts would have to turn themselves upside down, and you'd have to come up with convincing proof that Jesus wasn't resurrected from the dead. Do you think it's a little strange when someone says they're going to believe in something no matter what, even when all the evidence seems to point in the other direction? No. It's called faith, the evidence of things unseen. To put it in a scriptural way, let God be true and every man a liar. What is something your pastor has said in church that you totally disagree with? That the family is the foundation of society. No, let's go with that God, that marriage is the ultimate goal. It is the perfect state of being for an adult. And I challenged him with, and did you challenge him? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I challenged him with Jesus' teaching about celibacy, Paul's teaching about celibacy, and I held him up to God's word. And I had people come up to me and thank me. Let's see. Why are there so many Christian denominations? One, we sinful human beings aren't capable of perfectly understanding God, and some of us differ in genuine pursuit. Two, Satan and company like to spread false doctrine because it destroys people's, shipwrecks people's faith. It causes untold suffering and pain, and that's what they're all about. They get off on it. You combine these two, and you get a lot of denominations. Are the people in those denominations bad Christians? Are they wrong? I don't know. Good or bad Christians, that's already determined by Christ. Christ is Christian enough for all of us. That's why we're Christian at all. Are they wrong? Mm-hmm. Which denomination is right? Mine? Or group of denominations? I believe the confessional Lutheranism is correct. Who or what do you think is responsible for natural disasters like earthquakes or tsunamis? Adam? Can you pause the video right now and tell me what the 10 Commandments are? Yes. And if you know them, and good for you if you do, liar. Why do so many Christians believe the first 4 of them belong on government property in the classrooms? Because morality in the country was founded under God by God-fearing people in the belief that we can follow the 10 Commandments. That's a Thomas Jefferson quote. Did you not like that from the same source that you drew the separation of church and state? What? Even if you don't believe the American jurisprudence and system of government is derived from Judeo-Christian values, including Jesus and Christ, the first couple of commandments. That's why they belong in the government property, like in courtrooms, because they're the foundation of Western law, you ignorant person. Why would you have the foundation of Western law in a Western courtroom? Would you feel comfortable saying the Pledge of Allegiance in class every day if the words were one nation under no God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all? No, because that's evil, and that's breaking the first 4 commandments, which is, by definition, evil. Do you think it's coincidence that different religions are popular in different parts of the world? No, different cultures have different preferences, and the Bible clearly states that that Satan and company will mislead people by telling them what they want to hear. Do you believe it's possible? Do you believe that if you were born in Saudi Arabia, you would be a Muslim rather than a Christian? This is a what if hypothetical that doesn't happen, didn't happen, and I don't know. No, because God didn't put me in South America, in Saudi Arabia, and I'd probably be dead because I started off as an atheist, as a functional atheist and a evolutionist, and I became a Christian. So I was a Muslim and saw through that crap. I would probably become a Christian, except there they'd kill me because that's what the religion of peace does to people who defy them, as opposed to what we do to people like you who defy us, which is entertain your heresies and try to make time. A couple more and we'll get there.